Hello, these are notes 3 called adding and subtracting fractions. If you can get your notebook ready, remember notes 3 goes at the top with the title adding and subtracting fractions. To add and subtract fractions is a little rhyme I remember. Add and subtract, we must stack. Now, there's a lot of different ways to add fractions. Some of you are going to be awesome at adding fractions horizontally where you write the common denominators underneath and you can like squeeze in all the work. But for me, I'm going to consistently show my work, stacking the fractions, writing them vertically so that I have room to show all of my work. It's a personal preference. If you have a different strategy that you know how to do, you're welcome to use that strategy. I'm just going to consistently show this one. So my little rhyme is that I always remember add and subtract, we must stack. And I have 4 steps. The first is to stack the fractions. That means to write it in a one on top of the other. The second step is to get a common denominator. In order to add fractions, you have to have the same size like pie piece. If you want to think about it, fractions as a pie, you can't add a half a pie and a third of a pie together very easily. But if you add 1/6 pieces, then you can more easily find the total. After you get a common denominator, you're going to add or subtract the numerators. The denominator will always stay the same. And then the last step is to simplify. We always are going to have to simplify our fractions. Our answers are not complete until they are written in simplest form. If you need to press pause to write those down, go ahead. I'm going to move on to some examples. So for this first example, I'm going to start by stacking. Again, you don't have to. If you can squeeze all your work in up here, go for it. But I'm going to consistently show my work like this. So this is what I mean by stack the fractions, right? One on top of the other. Because it gives me beautiful space to show my work of getting a common denominator. A common denominator is the least common multiple of the two numbers in the denominator. The least doesn't really have to be true. It makes the math easiest. The numbers are always the smallest. It can just be a common multiple, but I try to get the least common multiple. So if I'm looking at 5 and 9, the least common multiple is 45. 5 goes into 5 times 9 is 45. So I'm going to multiply the bottom by 9. So I have to multiply the same thing to the top, and I get 18. To get from 9 to 45, I multiply by 5. Whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top, so I get 15. The whole point of rewriting these fractions is that they stay equal. If I simplify this, I'll get back to 3/9. These two fractions are equal. I just have made the pieces the same size in both fractions so that I can combine them easier. After I get a common denominator, I'm going to add the numerators. So I'm going to do 18 plus 15. That's 33. And then the denominator stays the same. So the denominator stays 45. And then I simplify. For this one, I can take a 3 out of both the top and the bottom, and I'm left with 11/15. 11 and 15 have nothing in common, so that's my simplified answer. Working with mixed numbers doesn't make it that much more complicated. I prefer always to change to improper first. This is going to be a necessary step when we move into having negative fractions in the next couple weeks. That's how we're going to be extending our learning. You already should know how to add fractions. What we learn in the 7th grade is how we add positive and negative fractions. So my suggestion is to always change to improper fractions first. So if we review that, we multiply the 7 times 1 at 7. And 7 plus 6 is 13. So this becomes 13 sevens plus 3 6. After I have them both as improper fractions like this, or this one and this one just stays the same, I'm going to stack the fractions. 13 sevens plus 3 6. I stack the fractions to have room to make my common denominator. My common denominator, the least common multiple here would be 42. 7 times 6 is 42. So I have to do 13 times 6, that's 78. 6 times 7 is 42, and whatever I do to the bottom, I have to do to the top. So I'm going to multiply by